2020, being held in the Microsoft Teams platform via video conference. Please note this meeting will be recorded and feature public comment. Commissioners, you're asked to mute your microphones when you're not speaking and to verbally identify yourself in the comments. Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, this is Regina Jackson, Planning Administrative Assistant. I will now confirm that all members of the Planning Commission are present and can hear me by calling the roll. Commissioner Williams.
Present.
Commissioner Thompson.
Present.
Commissioner Youngblood.
Present.
Commissioner Thaxton.
Present.
Commissioner G.
Present.
Commissioner Coleman. 6 members of the Planning Commission are present. This public meeting of the Planning Commission is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Northam's March 12, 2020 executive order due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth. Given the outbreak of COVID-19, a quorum of the commission is not physically present in the meeting location, but members have joined remotely. Further, all members of public body are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order you will find on the city's planning department webpage with agenda materials for this meeting allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will be recorded and feature public comment. Even if members of the public do not provide comment, participants are advised that people may be listening who do not comment, and those persons are not required to identify themselves. For this meeting, Planning Commission is convening by video conference via Microsoft Teams app as posted on the city's website, identifying how the public may join. Mr. Williams, you have to unmute.
Really makes a difference, doesn't it? Commissioners, before you are the minutes of the September 1st, 2020 public hearing. Do any commissioners have any corrections or changes to the minutes? If so, please state your name before stating the changes. If there aren't any changes, we're in need of a motion to approve the minutes.
This is Commissioner Ocasio G. I move for acceptance of the minutes as presented.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
This is Sherry Thaxton. I'll second.
Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes from the September the 1st, 2020 public hearing. Commissioners, as I call your name, please reply with a verbal response. Commissioner Williams?
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes.
Commissioner Youngblood?
Yes.
Commissioner Thaxton?
Yes.
Commissioner G?
Yes.
Commissioner Coleman? Okay, she's on mute. The minutes have been approved by a vote of 6-0. Announcements of future meetings and conferences. Due to the presidential elections on November the 3rd, 2020, our next scheduled public hearing is Tuesday, 17, 2020 at 1:30 p.m. The public hearing will be held in the Microsoft Teams platform via video conference. Items reviewed today will be presented to City Council for action at their December the 8th, 2020 virtual meeting, or as otherwise noted. We also ask that you mute your microphones when you are not to verbally identify to making comments. Our first public hearing item, UP-20-05 Seaboard Square, Kirk Fairley of Capital Growth Back Altar requests a use permit to construct a 2,500 square foot restaurant with drive-through on a portion, Lot D, of an approximately 13.9 acre parcel located at 1817 Frederick Boulevard, Suite 3. The property is zoned general mixed use conditional GMUK. The future land use map of the Build One Portsmouth Comprehensive Plan designates the property as commercial. The property is owned by Stephen E. Camp of Portsmouth ARD CGP LLC and is further described as tax map 1 parcel 2. The staff coordinator is Carl Jackson. Will the staff coordinator for this application please come forward and present your application at this time?
All right, thank you, Regina. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, that's great. This is Carl Jackson, Manager of Transportation Planning. Mr. Chair, Madam Chairwoman, Planning Commissioners, good afternoon. So the property is at 1817 Frederick Boulevard, bounded by Frederick Boulevard to the west, Turnpike Road to the north, and Depot Drive to the east. It is zoned general mixed use and is designated commercial by the Build One Portsmouth Comprehensive Plan. From the map you see to the left, the adjacent property east of the site is zoned urban high density residential, which is just across Depot Drive. And then from the photo, you can see that the site is currently vacant. Next slide. So as mentioned, east across Depot Drive is a Seaboard Square townhouse and apartment community. To the west, and that's zoned urban residential high density. And to the west is the CVS Pharmacy, which is zoned general mixed use. Next. To the north of the property is the Midtown Marketplace Kroger Shopping Center, also zoned general mixed use. And to the south, the CSX Railroad Portsmouth Operations Center, zoned industrial. Next slide. The applicant has submitted this conceptual master plan for the Seaboard Commons Retail Center. There are 4 lots are for development now, and Lot E, located toward the bottom of the site, will be developed at a later time. This site has a previous proffered rezoning for the site, which Ms. Chop will go into for her presentation. But my presentations primarily are concerned with the out parcels that are facing Frederick Boulevard. And so for this case, UP 2005, you see the arrow we are looking at for Lot D, or suite number 3. Next slide. The applicant is proposing a 2,500 square foot restaurant on Lot D with rear-facing drive-through and outdoor seating near the proposed entrance off of Frederick Boulevard. The restaurant will have 31 parking spaces, including 2 handicap spaces. Next slide. Starbucks is the proposed tenant for Suite 3. Here's an elevation of the building showing the frontage on Frederick Boulevard. Next. This is another image heading north on Frederick Boulevard. Next. Another elevation showing the rear of the restaurant. Next. And then this is the last showing the property facing south and showing the drive-through at the Starbucks. Next slide. So staff recommends approval with conditions, and I'm available if you have any questions.
Commissioners, I will call each of your names to see if you have any questions for Mr. Jackson. I have none. Commissioner Thompson,
I have no questions.
Commissioner Youngblood,
I see that we sent out a letter to Darlene Hurd with the Seaboard Council. Did you get any reply back from her?
No, I did not, sir. And
Thank
I
you.
know the applicant is also, okay, sure, and the applicant has also reached out to Seaboard Civic as well.
Commissioner Thaxton.
No,
Commissioner,
no,
Commissioner G,
I have no questions.
Commissioner Coleman,
I have no questions.
Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now begin the public hearing on item UP-20-05. Citizens will be called upon to provide comments or questions and are asked to verbally identify yourself prior to making comments and to mute your microphone when you are not speaking. Will the applicant for UP-20-05 come forward to provide any additional information or comments? State your name and your address for the record, and you will be given up to 5 minutes to speak.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. For the record, my name is Lisa Murphy, local zoning attorney, and I'm here today on behalf of the applicant, Capital Growth Buckhalter. We want to thank Carl Jackson and Julie Chop for their work on this. As you will note, the 4 applications that you have before you are part of an integrated mixed-use retail project that the applicant has been working on for some time now. The applicant itself is a state development investment 66 experience. And what they do is they develop higher end mixed use developments. They place a high priority on shared spaces and high quality lifestyles. They have great relationships during their development projects with national and regional retailers, and that really helps to set them apart in what's otherwise a struggling retail industry. Since the property was originally rezoned to GMUK, general mixed use conditional, as most of you know, retail centers have shifted from merchandise sales, heavy uses, to service-oriented uses and other uses that have been less impacted by the tremendous growth in online retail sales. So changes and challenges in the retail industry are largely the reason why this property has sat vacant for the last 5 years since it was rezoned. The pandemic, as you know, has also had a tremendous impact on the retail industry, and it's forced restaurants especially to focus on outdoor seating, drive-through, and curbside pickup. So the use permit that you have before you is for the drive-through for the Starbucks, which is Lot D, suite number 3. And this use permit will enable them to operate a drive-through restaurant and add to the overall vitality and the mix of users in this retail project, which is the applicant is calling Seaboard Commons. As the staff report indicates, the proposed project, there's a little bit of feedback. I don't know. Yep. As the staff report indicates, the proposed project, including the drive-through uses, will provide for the redevelopment of this vacant underutilized parcel that's within a Virginia enterprise zone, and it's in compliance with the comprehensive plan. The Starbucks will be located, as I said, on Lot D, Suite 3. It will provide 15 new jobs, which is a huge benefit. Like the other restaurants, it'll have an outdoor patio and dining areas. And again, these use permits and the rezoning will allow the applicant to operate a vibrant mixed-use center. I'll answer the question up front about Seaboard Square. We have reached out to Seaboard Square. We had, despite the pandemic, we had a socially distanced, face-covered meeting with the board of Seaboard Square on August the 14th. And since then, we've been I've been in constant contact with Darlene Hurd and Seaboard Square. We've kept them apprised every bit of the process. we didn't hear any real grave concerns. I think we heard mostly about the mix of tenants and the fact that this was going to be developed. Another thing I wanted to point out is the concept plan includes infrastructure upgrades, as the staff report indicates, and those will really improve pedestrian safety and the connectivity, creating this sidewalk network that'll connect the users within the project to Seaboard Square. So overall, we do think the mix of tenants and this particular use permit and the benefits that the development will provide will be good for the neighborhood and will provide job opportunities to residents. I'm happy to answer any specific questions about this particular use permit, but that really gives you a good overview of
1 minute left.
What it is that the applicant is trying to do here. Again, your staff report supports this conditional use permit, recommends approval. We would respectfully request that you recommend approval as well, and I'm happy to answer questions. And we've got other members of our development team on the line as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mercer. Commissioners, I will call each of your names. If you have questions, please let those be known. I have none. Commissioner Thompson?
No questions?
Commissioner Youngblood?
No questions.
Commissioner Thaxton?
No questions.
Commissioner G?
I have one question. It would probably cover all of the other ones today as well. Does this investment group have any other properties in the Hampton Roads market?
I've got Kirk Fairley, who is the representative directly of Capital Growth Culture. Kirk, do you want to address specifically other projects that you all have in Hampton Roads? Or will this be the first project of its kind?
Hi, can y'all hear me? This is Kirk Farrelly with Capital Growth Culture.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, sir. We've actually just kind of started branching in the Virginia area. We're working on development in Franklin, Virginia, and then other developments we're looking at in Chesapeake. But this is our first major development in Portsmouth.
Thank you.
Commissioner Coleman?
I have no questions.
Madam Secretary?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a public hearing on item UP-20-05. I have no registered speakers. If there is someone on the call who would like to address this application, you may do so at this time. Press *6 to unmute your mic, and you will be given up to 5 minutes to speak.
Mr. Kenneth Rodman, you have your hand raised. Do you wish to speak?
Can you all hear me?
Yes.
My name is Kenneth Rodman. I'm with VHB. We're the civil engineers representing Capital Growth Buckhalter on this project. And we actually have some history on this property because we worked with Warner Equity Group when they went through the rezoning on this property back in 2014, 2015, 2016 timeframe. So we've been working on this piece of ground for 6 years, and I'd like the commissioners to recognize or understand that with this development based versus the previous one that was went through with the rezoning, this one has less square footage and less traffic demand on the local roadway network than the original development. It's a less dense project than what was originally proposed here, and I think that's an important point for the commissioners to understand. And I'm here to answer any of your engineering or technical questions you may have about the layout or how the site's going to function.
Okay.
Madam Secretary?
Okay. Again, this is a public hearing on UP-20-05. If there's anyone else on the call who would like to address this application, you may do so at this time. Press *6 to unmute your mic, and you will be given up to 5 minutes to speak.
Sure, and this is Kirk Farrelly again. So I'm with Capital Growth Buckhalter. Our address is 361 Summit Boulevard, Birmingham, Alabama 35243. I too wanted to thank Carl and the staff in putting together comprehensive reports and background info and everything before you all today. As Lisa mentioned, we are a national commercial real estate firm. We started looking at this project in October 2018. After much, due diligence, site planning with too many iterations to count, preliminary staff meetings, coordination with PHRA, tenant selection, financing, we finally closed on the property on March 12th, 2020. Obviously, the pandemic came shortly thereafter, which threw some initial hurdles with tenant delays, but since that time, we've actively re-engaged with each tenant. And we're pleased to present the current roster of national restaurants, Chipotle, Starbucks, and Zaxby's, and a local Hampton Roads car wash group, Green Clean Auto Wash, which we'll get into on item 4. And as Lisa mentioned, the pandemic has made it clear that pickup windows, drive-throughs, curbside parking for customer pickup, and mobile order pickup spaces, along with outdoor dining, patios, are absolute necessities for restaurants to operate in these times, and also going forward. And our proposed layout reflects all of these items, which are before you today. And I'm here for any questions as well. And thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is there anyone else on the call who would like to address this application? Appearing to be none, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission, this public hearing is now closed.
Commissioners, is there any further discussion? If not, we're in need of a motion and a second.
Yes.
Okay,
Did you hear?
I could not hear. Meg, could you hear Donna?
No, it was very muffled. Can you try again, Ms. Coleman? Oh, Lord. Yeah, we
that
can't hear
was-
you at all. You might want to try logging off and getting back on. Maybe someone else can do this motion.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, can we do the motion again to get another permission to make a motion?
Could we get one of you to make a motion?
Yeah, this is Commissioner G. I move for acceptance of UP 20-05 with stated conditions.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
This is Commissioner Thompson. I second the motion.
Madam Secretary, we have a motion and a second.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have a motion and a second to approve UP-20-05. Commissioners, as I call your name, please reply with a verbal response. Commissioner Williams,
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson,
Yes.
Commissioner Youngblood,
Yes.
Commissioner G,
Yes.
Commissioner Thaxton,
Yes.
Commissioner Coleman.
Yes.
This item is approved 6-0 with conditions. Our next item, UP-20-06, Seaboard Square. Kurt Farrelly of Capital Growth Bachhalter requests a use permit to construct a 2,300 square foot restaurant with drive-through on a portion of Lot A of an approximately 13.9 acre parcel located at 1817 Suite 1. The property is zoned general mixed use conditional GMU-K. The featured land use map of the Build 1 Portsmouth Comprehensive Plan designates the property as commercial. The property is owned by Stephen E. Camp of Portsmouth, ARDCGP LLC, and is further described as tax map 189, parcel 32. The staff coordinator is Carl Jackson. Will the staff coordinator for this application please come forward and present your application at this time?
All right, thank you, Regina.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chair, Madam Chairman, Planning Commissioners, good afternoon. You all are familiar with the property and the boundaries. The zoning is general mixed use, conditional. as well as the current status of the property as vacant. Next slide. You all are aware of its current surroundings. To the east with the Seaboard Square Apartments, to the west with the CVS Pharmacy. Next slide. And to the north by the Midtown Marketplace, and to the south by the CSX Railroad and Portsmouth Operations Center. Next slide. And from the applicant's submitted conceptual master plan for Seaboard Commons, we will now be looking at the Lot A, which is located up at the corner of Frederick Boulevard and Turnpike Road. And this is a suite number. Next slide. The applicant is proposing a 2,300 square foot restaurant on Lot A with rear-facing drive-through, outdoor seating, and its location right at the corner of Frederick and Turnpike. The restaurant will also have 31 parking spaces and 2 handicap spaces. Next slide. Chipotle is the proposed tenant for Suite 1. Here is the elevation of the building, the front of the building facing Frederick Boulevard. Next. And here is a north-facing direction of the building from Frederick. Next. The rear of the building. Next. And this is the south face of the building from Turnpike Road. Next slide. Staff once again recommends approval with conditions, and I'm available for questions.
Commissioners, I will call each of your names to see if you have any questions for Mr. Jackson. I have none. Commissioner Thompson?
I have no questions.
Commissioner Youngblood?
Okay.
Commissioner G?
I have no questions.
Commissioner Thaxton?
I have no questions.
Commissioner Coleman?
Yes, Chairman, I do have a question. I don't know whether this would be for the applicant or for staff. You can direct it as you wish, but I just wanted to know about the exits and entrances. If someone can explain how those will be. I'm assuming it's going to be, you know, right in, right out on Frederick and, you know, going through the neighborhood off Depot, if that is for staff or the developer.
Well, there are 3 entrances proposed at this time. Frederick, one on Turnpike and one on Depot. And I think that they are 2-way entrances, but I can allow the applicant to respond to that.
Thank you. Then I have no other questions.
Commissioner Coleman? Or did I do that already? I did. Madam Secretary?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now begin the public hearing on item UP-20-06. Citizens will be called upon to provide comments or questions and are asked to verbally identify yourself prior to making comments and to mute your microphone when you are not speaking. Will the applicant for UP-20-06 come forward and provide any additional information or comments? State your name and your address for the record, and you will be given up to 5 minutes to speak.
This is Lisa Murphy again. I think that probably Ken Rodman, who had raised his hand to speak, is probably in a better position to explain it. But we've spent a long time working on the traffic flow, the flow of the 3 drive-throughs to make sure everything works well within the development. Ken, do you want to address how the traffic will flow through the site and how it's been developed?
I'd be happy to. Again, my name's Ken Rodman. Address 4500 Main Street, Suite 400, Virginia Beach, Virginia 23462. We did a traffic study with the original rezoning. Then we did an updated traffic study for these uses that was submitted with our application. The access off of Frederick Boulevard will be a right in, right out. the first access nearest to the intersection of Turnpike and Frederick will be a right in, right out. Then the access on Depot Drive is a full access onto Depot Drive where they can come up to Depot Drive and then make a either a left or a right onto Turnpike. And like I said, the traffic study for this project actually produced less traffic than the original traffic study for the rezoning. I can answer any more questions if anybody has any more questions about the traffic or access issues.
Commissioner Coleman, does that address your issue?
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Commissioners, I will call each of your names to see if you have any additional questions for the on this project. I have none. Commissioner Thompson,
No questions.
Commissioner Youngblood, Commissioner Youngblood,
Questions?
Commissioner
No
G.
questions.
Okay.
I also have no questions.
Commissioner Thaxton,
No questions.
Commissioner Coleman, do you have any additional questions?
I did have one additional question. Can you tell me what time this restaurant is going to close, the latest it would close on the weekends?
Sure, this is Kirk Farrelly, the developer. The anticipated hours for Chipotle are 10:45 a.m. to 10 p.m. daily.
Thank you.
Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a public hearing on item UP-20-06. I have no registered speakers. If there is someone on the call who would like to address this application, you may do so at this time. Press *6 to unmute your mic, and you will be given up to 5 minutes to speak.
Sure, and this is Kirk Farrelly again, Capital Growth Buckhalter, 361 Summit Boulevard, Birmingham, Alabama, 35243. One point of clarification, this is not your typical drive-through. It is a pickup lane whereby customers will order ahead via telephone or online, and then the pickup lane to pick up at the pickup window. And this will also have other spots available for staff to bring out the orders to patrons if they so choose that option. And I'm here for any other questions you may have.
Thank you, sir. Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is there anyone else on the call who would like to address this application? Ms. Pittenger, I see someone with their hand raised. I'm not sure if they're wanting to.
Jim at the Mariners Museum, are you wishing to speak? I see you have your hand raised.
Yes, my name is James Weatherby, and I am employed by the Mariners Museum, but I'm also the property owner of 3 lots immediately west of the proposed site, or the site immediately adjacent to the Seaboard Railroad tracks. If you go back to one of the diagrams or one of the pictures on the slideshow, my property is at the bottom left-hand corner of the picture. Right there. Yep, exactly. So my question is, we've been recently approached by an entity that's interested in purchasing our property for a development, mostly in a light industrial type application. And my question is, what, if any, effect or possible effect does the Planning Commission see as this development, the restaurants and potential car wash, having on other developments, particularly my property, which is the only light industrial site in the area for the future? Will there be any restrictions because of how the area is materializing or being developed? Do they see any potential for that?
Commissioner Jackson, can you address that?
Mr. Chairman, this is Bob Baldwin. Would you like me to address that?
Yeah, would you, Mr. Baldwin?
Certainly would. And good afternoon, Chairman, members of the Planning Commission. It'd be my expectation that this development, which, as everyone has noted, has been zoned this way for some period, would not have any direct effect on the development across the street. The only caveat I would say to that is in the event the property owner across the street were to come in and want to try to rezone, obviously we would look at it within the context of the commercial property directly across Frederick. But just generally speaking, I would not see this action on the Seaboard Square properties having any effect on that property across the street.
Thank you.
Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, are there any other speakers who would like to address this application? Appearing to be none, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission, this public hearing is now closed.
Commissioners, we are now in need of a motion for UP-20-06 with conditions.
This is Sherry Thaxton. I'd like to make a motion to approve UP-20-06 with conditions.
Is there a second?
This is Commissioner Thompson. I second.
Madam Secretary, we have a motion and a second.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have a motion and a second to approve UP-20-06. Commissioners, as I call your name, please reply with a verbal response. Commissioner Williams?
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes.
Commissioner Youngblood?
Yes.
Commissioner G?
Yes.
Commissioner Thaxton?
Yes.
Commissioner Coleman?
Yes.
This item is approved 6-0 with conditions. Our next item, UP-20-08 Seaboard Square. Kurt Fairley of Capitol Grove Backhalter requests a use permit to construct a 3,008 square foot restaurant with drive-through on a portion Lot B of an approximately 13.9 acre parcel located at 1817 Frederick Boulevard, Suite 2. The property is zoned General Mixed Use Conditional, GMU-K. The future land use map of the Build One Portsmouth Comprehensive Plan designates the property as commercial. The property is owned by Stephen E. Camp of Portsmouth ARDCGP LLC and is further described as tax map 189, parcel 32. The staff coordinator is Carl Jackson. Will the staff coordinator for this application please come forward and present your application at this time?
Thank you, Regina.
You're welcome.
And Chairman Williams, I apologize for not answering that question. I thought you were referencing a commissioner, but I do concur with Mr. Baldwin's response.
I was going to try to add you to our list.
Well, Mr. Chairman, Madam Chairman, Planning Commissioners, once again, good afternoon. You are familiar with the site here at 1817 Frederick Boulevard. You know that it's zoned general mixed use and that the site is currently vacant. Next slide. And you are aware of what's east of the property and what's to the west of the property. Next slide. And then finally, you're aware of what's to the north, the Kroger Marketplace, and to the south, the CSX Railroad and Portsmouth Operations Center. Next slide. Now, from the submitted conceptual master plan from the applicant for Seaboard Commons, we'll now be looking at the next suite, which is suite number 2 on Lot B. If we can go to the next slide. The applicant is proposing a 3,967 square foot restaurant on Lot B with rear facing drive-through and outdoor seating midway between the intersection and proposed entrance on Frederick Boulevard. The restaurant will have 40 parking spaces and 2 handicap spaces. Next slide. Zaxby's is the proposed tenant for Suite 2. Here's the elevation of the building front facing Frederick Boulevard. Next slide. And here are more elevations facing north on the Zaxby's. Next slide. The rear of the building. Next slide. And then finally facing south, the view of the building elevation. Next slide. Now, based on the traffic impact analysis submitted by the applicant, the total Seaboard Commons development will generate over 5,000 daily trips, 250 trips during the PM peak. Suite 2 itself will, once it's completed with the other developments, will generate a modest impact to the intersection. But thankfully, the applicant has proposed signal timing improvements at the intersection, which will be completed prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy for the first building. And this should help to improve the overall level of service at the intersection of Frederick and Turnpike Road. Next slide. Staff again recommends, okay, that's all right. Staff recommends approval with conditions, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Commissioners, I will call each of your names to see if you have any questions for Mr. Jackson. I have none. Commissioner Thompson?
I have no.
Commissioner Youngblood?
No questions.
Commissioner Thaxton?
No questions.
Commissioner G?
I have no questions.
Commissioner Coleman?
I have no questions.
Madam Secretary?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now begin the public hearing on item UP-20-08. Citizens will be called upon to provide comments or questions and are asked to verbally identify yourself prior to making comments and to mute your microphone when you're not speaking. Will the applicant for UP-20-08 come forward to provide any additional information or comments? State your name and your address for the record, and you will be given up to 5 minutes to speak.
Good afternoon again. For the record, my name is Lisa Murphy, local attorney with an office at 440 Monticello Ave, Suite 2200 in the city of Norfolk. I just wanted to point out the Mr. Jackson referenced proffer number 7. The way that the traffic impact analysis works, it takes several of these users to develop to trigger the signal timing optimization as part of the next application. And the last application you'll see for the project, which was the rezoning, we had offered up the proffer number 7, which would optimize the signal timing when that very first certificate of occupancy is issued for the first building. So it wouldn't matter which building was developed first or how many users you had in there before that optimized signal timing work was done. So I just wanted to point out that that was actually tied, a proffer tied to the rezoning. The Zaxby's use, again, I think it's great to point out that this will provide approximately 45 to 50 new jobs. So we're taking an undeveloped, underutilized parcel, putting it on the tax rolls and developing it to its highest and best use, and all the while providing jobs for residents, including residents of Seaboard Square. So we're really excited about this project, as you all can see. We think it's a great project. I'm happy to answer any questions that are specific to this use permit for the Zaxby's drive-through.
Commissioners, I will call each of your names to see if you have any additional questions for this project. I have none. Commissioner Thompson?
I have no questions.
Commissioner Youngblood?
No questions.
Commissioner G?
No questions.
Commissioner Thaxton?
No questions.
Commissioner Coleman?
No questions.
Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a public hearing on item UP-20-08. I have no registered speakers. If there is anyone on the call who would like to address this application, you may do so at this time. Press *6 to unmute your mic, and you will be given up to 5 minutes to speak.
Sure. This is Kirk Farrelly, Capital Growth Buckhalter, 361 Summit Boulevard, Birmingham, Alabama, 35243. I have nothing to add from what Carl and Lisa added. The only thing I would say as an aside is the Seaboard Square leadership were very excited that Zaxby's was coming here, for what that's worth. And I'm here for any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else on the call who would like to address this application? Appearing to be none, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission, this public hearing is now closed.
Commissioners, is there any? If not, the chair's need of a motion and a second.
Sherry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Ms. Dax.
Sherry Thaxton, I'd like to make a motion to approve UP-20-08 with conditions.
Is there a second?
Commissioner Ocasio, GI, second.
Madam Secretary, we have a motion and a second.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have a motion and a second to approve UP-20-08. Commissioners, as I call your name, please reply with a verbal response. Commissioner Williams?
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes.
Commissioner Youngblood?
Yes.
Commissioner G?
Yes.
Commissioner Thaxton?
Yes.
Commissioner Coleman?
Yes.
This item is approved 6-0 with next item 20-04 Seaboard Square. Kurt Farrelly of Capital Growth Buckhalter requests to rezone approximately 13.9 acres at 1817 Frederick Boulevard from General Mixed Use Conditional GMU-K to General Mixed Use Conditional GMU, to amend the proffers to allow a 3,200 square foot car wash as part of the Seaboard Commons retail development. The future land use map of the Commons retail development. The future land use map of the Bill 1 Portsmouth Comprehensive Plan designates the property as commercial. The property is owned by Stephen E. Camp of Portsmouth ARD CGP LLC and is further described as Tax Map 189, Parcel 32. The staff coordinator is Julie Chop. Will the coordinator for this application please come forward and present your application at this time?
Hi, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Ms. Vice Chairwoman, Planning Commissioners. This is Julie Chop, planner with the City of Portsmouth. The rezoning application before you today involves a 13.9 acre parcel at 1817 Frederick Boulevard, which is in general mixed use conditional. The property is designated on the future land use map of the comprehensive plan as commercial. The applicant is requesting to amend the existing proffers bound to the property to allow a car wash use as part of the Seaboard Commons commercial development. 1817 Frederick Boulevard is located at the intersection of Frederick Boulevard and Turnpike Road and is currently vacant of structures. This property is a portion of what was formerly the Jeffrey Wilson Housing Project. Jeffrey Wilson was demolished and redeveloped by PRHA as Seaboard Square, a planned new urbanist community with 221 residential units. Next slide, please. The portion now proposed for proffer amendment is subject to zoning amendment ordinance Z-1508. The voluntary conditions were included to ensure adequate protection of the residential uses of Seaboard Square. The conditions require a heavily screened landscape buffer along Depot Drive between the property and Seaboard Square, which is to be completed in phase 1 of the development. The conditions also prohibited uses that were seen as inappropriate for development on 1817 Frederick Boulevard and incompatible with the adjacent residential use. The prohibited uses included all light vehicle sales and service uses except for auto parts and installation. The purpose of this application is to amend the proffers for Z1508 to allow a car wash to be developed on the property. Next slide, please. So as Carl has discussed, to the east of the property is the PRHA-owned affordable housing development of Seaboard Square. Seaboard Square is zoned high-density urban residential conditional. CVS Pharmacy is located to the west of the property and is zoned general mixed use. To the north is the Midtown, or next slide, please. To the north is the Midtown Marketplace Kroger Shopping Center, which is zoned GMU. The CSX Railroad, Interstate 264, and the City of Portsmouth Public Works Operations Center is located to the south of the property. The Operations Center is zoned industrial. Next slide, please. An updated conceptual layout plan shown here was submitted with this rezoning request to amend the proffered conditions. As proposed, the site would be subdivided into 5 tracts of land. Lots A, B, and D are proposed for restaurants with drive-through services, as Mr. Jackson has discussed. Lot E is shown as vacant on the conceptual plan as no development is planned at this time. Lot C is proposed for an express car wash. The residential uses at Seaboard Square directly front Depot Drive and would be facing the car wash as proposed on the concept plan. Next slide, please. The applicant submitted conceptual building elevations of the proposed car wash. The car wash will have an express automated tunnel with self-service vacuums on site. The proposed car wash is anticipated to operate from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. with 8 full-time employees and 3 to 5 part-time employees. I have informed the applicant that the development, if approved, would be subject to the parking standards of the zoning ordinance and a full site plan review. This elevation shows the facade facing the parking and vacuum area. Next slide, please. This elevation shows the facade that faces Lot E and shows where the vehicles would enter the automated wash tunnel. Next slide, please. So this elevation shows the facade that would directly face the residents at Seaboard Square. Next slide, please. The final elevation shows the facade facing Turnpike Road. The Build One Portsmouth Comprehensive Plan designates 1817 Frederick as a mixed-use corridor area. The plan recommends that these areas develop a more coherent and connected land use pattern, including compatible transitions to adjacent residential areas. A car wash does not exemplify a use that is part of a coherent land use pattern or a compatible transition to adjacent residential areas. Staff recommends denial of the applicant's request to amend the proffers of 1817 Frederick Boulevard. Next slide, please. Staff considers a car wash, outdoor vacuums, and auto detailing located directly adjacent to the residential dwellings in Seaboard Square to be an incompatible use that contradicts the goals, objectives, and policies of the Build One Portsmouth Comprehensive Plan. Staff is also concerned with proffer number 5 on the revised proffer letter regarding the landscape buffer along Depot Drive. In response to staff concerns, a revised proffer letter was submitted on September 28th after the staff report was completed. The original proffer required that the entire buffer would be completed in phase 1 of the development. The revised proffer increases the width of the buffer along the proposed car wash site from 20 feet to 30 feet, and in addition, does not require that the buffer along Lot E be completed during phase 1 of the development. Staff is opposed to this change and believes that the entire landscape buffer should be completed during phase 1. The buffering and screening required by the zoning ordinance and the proposed revised proffers do not adequately protect the adjacent residents from the undesirable effects of a car wash use. A car wash use in such close proximity to a residential development is an inappropriate land use. One public comment was received regarding this application and was forwarded to the planning commissioners on October 5th. This concludes my presentation, and I would be happy to stand by for any questions.
Commissioners, I will call each of your names to see if you have any additional questions or any questions for Ms. Chop. I have none. Commissioner Thompson?
I have a question. So they want to change the all light vehicle sales and service uses except for auto parts and installation. What exactly would that be?
So right now, the proffer allows auto. So that's like a AutoZone, or it's like an auto parts store where, you know, like an AutoZone, they'll help you change your battery, but it's not a full out service center.
That would not allow like a mechanic
So
or a body shop.
That kind of store is permitted right now. What they're asking, what the proffer amendment is asking for, is to allow the car wash use,
I understand that. Yes,
which is
I got
within the light vehicle sales and service.
I understand that.
Oh.
Okay. I'm sorry. I was just wondering what would fall under auto parts and installation. It was really the installation part that I was wondering about. I'll probably have more questions, but I'll stop here. Oh, actually, no, I do want to know what you talked to the board for Seaboard. What did they feel about this?
I did not speak with the board. The applicant spoke with the board, so during their presentation, they can speak to that.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Commissioner Youngblood?
No questions.
Commissioner G?
No questions at this time.
Commissioner Thaxton?
No questions.
Commissioner Coleman?
No questions.
Madam Secretary?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now begin the public hearing on item Z-20-04. Citizens will be called upon to provide comments or questions and are asked to verbally identify yourself prior to making comments and to mute your microphone when you are not speaking. Will the applicant for Z-20-04 come forward to provide any additional information or comments? State your name and your address for the record, and you will be given up to 5 minutes to speak.
Good afternoon again. For the record, my name is Lisa Murphy. I'm zoning counsel for the applicant, Capital Growth Buckhalter, and my address is 440 Monticello Ave, Suite 2200 in the city of Norfolk. I wanted to go ahead and address Commissioner Thompson's comment. So the proffers and the restrictions on this are interesting. So light vehicle sales and service uses, which are otherwise allowed in the GMUK, the general mixed use districts, were prohibited by proffer except auto parts and installation. And you're right, on the installation side, that would be something like a tire center or a type of light vehicle sales user that would involve the installation of auto parts. So yes, it would be AutoZone, but it also would be somebody like a tire center. So you've identified something that was confusing for the applicant. As Mr. Farrelly mentioned, the applicant acquired the subject property from PRHA this past spring. They knew this was zone GMUK, general mixed use commercial, so they knew the general mix of uses that were authorized in the district. They did not realize that the car wash was an excluded use until meeting with planning staff to go through the process. So, we think it might have been a little bit gray as far as whether it fits into this auto parts and installation use, but staff said that it was not, which is why we're making this application to amend the proffers to specifically allow not any uses, not any other light service uses, just a full service car wash. So once they realized that there was this use that was allowed in the surrounding mixed use projects, but not allowed in this project, they again, began discussing with PRHA. And in your packet, you'll see it is page, let's see, after the report and the description and narrative, towards the end of your packet is a letter from PRHA dated April 17th, 2020, advising the applicant that pursuant to PRHA's review, that they considered a full service car wash to be a permitted use along with the other permitted uses on the project. So with that in hand and with the mix of tenants, the applicant again made this application with the 3 conditional use permit applications. You know, the use permits and the zoning amendment requested, as we said, will enable CGB to operate a vibrant mixed-use service center, which called Seaboard Commons. Each of the tenants is aware of the other tenants. They've all signed up at this point, which is why we can announce them. None of the other tenants had concerns about this particular high-end prototype car wash. And you know, they would be the ones, obviously, from a business perspective, who would be impacted if this user was potentially damaging to their business. In the course of our conversations with the city, we have shown, as was indicated, we've proffered the signal timing optimization. We've also proffered the design and the layout of this particular property. The others will be subject to the use permit conditions. But we've also increased the landscaping, and what we did to address staff's concern was we actually moved the building, shifted it towards Frederick Boulevard to pull it as far away as we could from Depot Drive to get a little bit of additional distance. The landscape buffer on this side will be increased from 20 to 30 feet, same category C, so it is a very dense landscape buffer. If you look at the
1 minute
site,
remaining.
if you can see from the elevations, the rear of the building actually has faux windows. There you go, and awning, so you're not looking at the sort of a flat surface side of a building. We've reduced the number of vacuums in the front from 27 to 15. That was part of the overall modification. Green Clean is clean. They use, they reclaim their water, and their operations are very clean. We feel this is an appropriate use. PRHA agrees, and we did not receive any negative feedback from Seaboard Square when we discussed with them all of the uses and all of the applications we were proposing for this project. So I'm happy to stand by to answer questions. I know my time is up, and we respectfully request that you also recommend approval of this, the last piece of the puzzle for this this mixed-use project. I appreciate your time.
Commissioners, I will call each of your names to see if you have any questions for Ms. Murphy. I have none. Commissioner Thompson?
I have comments. I think that this mixed use is an excellent choice. The car wash there, I think, is going to be used by the people that are going to the Starbucks. It's going to be used by the residents of Seaboard Square. People wash their cars in their front yard, so I don't see why this is an incompatible use. Fire center would be an incompatible use, so I would almost be in favor of taking that exception for auto parts and installation away and allowing a full service car wash. That's my comment.
Commissioner Youngblood?
No comments.
Commissioner G?
I have no comments.
Commissioner Saxton?
No, I do have one question. I want to make sure I heard her correctly. She said that they're reducing the vacuums from 27 to 15.
This is Lisa. Yeah, so the layout before you shows that reduction. So by reducing the number of spaces for vacuums, we were able to move the building away from Depot Drive and add that additional landscape buffer. That was part of the sort of iterative process as we went through this with staff.
All right, thank you.
Commissioner
You're
Coleman?
I have no questions at this time.
Madam Secretary?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a public hearing on item Z-20-04. I have no registered speakers. If there is someone on the call who would like to address this application, you may do so at this time. Press *6 to unmute your mic, and you will be given up to 5 minutes to speak.
Sure, this is Kirk Farrelly, Capital Growth Buckhalter, 361 Summit Boulevard, Birmingham, Alabama, 35243. Just to touch on what Lisa said and also one of the commissioner's questions, per the car wash operator, they use 100% biodegradable soaps. They reclaim up to 75% of the water that they use. And in their operations, they claim that their wash is far better for the environment than someone washing in their driveway. It's just frankly more efficient. They'll have 3 1,600-gallon reclaim tanks, a reclaim system, and an oil water separator to reuse as much water as they can. Other than that, they are currently operating 2 car washes in Suffolk and Chesapeake, and they have plans for a total of 3 in Portsmouth. That would yield approximately 26 full-time positions and then 9 to 15 part-time positions. And this third location is integral to them getting an area manager and some other jobs secured. And I'm here for any questions y'all may have.
Thank you, sir. Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is there anyone else on the call who would like to address this application?
I would. Again, it's Ken Rodman with VHP, engineer representative of Capital Growth Buckhalter, address 4500 Main Street, Suite 400, Virginia Beach, Virginia 23462. One clarification I'd like to make when Ms. Murphy explained how we increased the buffer from 20 feet to 30 feet and doing the type C landscape buffer, we also increased vegetation by 50%. Since we increased the buffer from 20 to 30 feet, increasing it by 50%, we also increased the vegetation by 50% to provide an more than adequate screening from the residents of Seaboard Square to the attractive side of the back side of the car wash.
Okay, Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is there anyone else on the call who would like to address this application? You may come forward. Appearing to be none, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission, this public hearing is now closed.
Commissioners, are there any additional questions or comments? If there are none, I'm sorry.
I have one. That was a great point I think Mr. Farrelly made about this being more environmentally friendly than people washing their vehicles in their yards. I didn't even think about that, but I'm going back to my previous comment that I do not think this is an incompatible use.
Thank you, Commissioner Thompson. Commissioners, any additional questions, comments?
Hi, Chairman Williams. This is Donna Coleman.
Commissioner.
Yes, I would like to say that I don't agree that this is a compatible use. I feel like the number of vacuums even being taken from 27 to 15, and with people out there vacuuming, perhaps having radios up, or the number of vacuums, the dryer going at the car wash, and still with the buffering close to the residential, I do not agree that it would be compatible even with the changes that they are implementing.
Thank you, Commissioner Coleman. Commissioners, any additional comments, questions? Madam Secretary. Commissioners, we are now in need of a motion for Z20-04. Is there a motion?
This is Donna Coleman. I vote to deny the 20-04 for the rezoning the condition.
Okay. The motion on the table is to deny Z-20-04. Is there a second?
Sherry Thaxton, I second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to deny Z-20-04. Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have a motion and a second to deny Z-20-04. 20-04. Just for a point of clarification, a yes vote is you would like to deny, and a no is you do not want to deny. As I call your name.
Now, wait a minute, Madam Secretary. Now, as I recall Robert's rules, if the motion is to deny, if it's a 3-3, then it moves forward.
Yes, it will.
It moves forward to the city council. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. That is correct.
Okay.
So
I'm sorry, what did you say?
if it's a
If
tie
the
vote,
motion is to deny, if there's a tie 3-3, it moves forward anyway.
As a non-denial?
Right.
Mr. Chairman, this is Bob Baldwin. I believe Jeff Miller is attending the meeting. I'd like to ask Mr. Miller if he's available to comment on that question.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon. Can you all hear me?
yes.
Yes, under the Planning Commission's rules, in order for an item to move forward as recommended, of course, an item's going to move forward to council either way. It's just a recommendation of denial or approval. To move forward with a recommendation, it will require an affirmative vote of a majority of the board. So if there's a 3-3 tie on a vote to deny, then it would be a question of making a motion to approve and seeing whether there can be a vote for approval or recommending approval.
I'm playing Russell and I shouldn't do that. I'm sorry.
Okay. All minds and hearts clear? Mabel, Madam Secretary. Please,
Thank you,
Madam Secretary, please state the motion again.
Yeah, yes, sir. Have a motion and a second to deny Z-20-04.
And an affirmative vote is to deny.
To deny, correct.
Madam Secretary.
Okay. As I call your name, please reply with a verbal response. Commissioner Williams,
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson,
No.
Commissioner Youngblood,
No.
Commissioner G,
Yes.
Commissioner Thaxton,
No.
okay. Commissioner Thaxton,
Yes.
Commissioner Coleman,
Yes.
okay. The vote, the motion was to deny Z-20-04. This, so we have 4 yeses and 2 nos, so it is denied by a vote of 4-2. Okay. Mr. Chairman?
Yes. Madam Secretary, now, I believe agenda for today, but there's one other item that we need to put on the, we need to approve of, and that's to have a special work session for the revised zoning update. And we've scheduled that for November the 5th at 10 a.m. On Microsoft Teams. And that requires a motion and a second and approval of the commission. So commissioners, if there's we would like to get a motion to have a special work session on November 5th at 10 a.m. to have discussed with us the revised zoning update. The chair is in need of a motion.
This is Commissioner G. I move that we have a special session on November the 5th at 10 a.m. For stated purpose.
Thank you, Commissioner G. Is there a second?
Commissioner Thompson, I second.
Madam Secretary, we have a motion and a second. to have a special work session on November 5th at 10 a.m. for the purpose of discussing the revised zoning update.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Motion and a second. And as I call your name, reply with a verbal response. Commissioner Williams,
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson,
Yes.
Commissioner Youngblood,
Yes.
Commissioner Thaxton,
Yes.
Commissioner Coleman.
Yes.
Yes, we will have a special meeting for the update on the zoning ordinance on Thursday, November the 5th at 10 o'clock a.m.
I vote yes too.
Yeah, I didn't call you. I did call your name. I called you.
Commissioners, now I will call each of your names to see if there's any additional items that we need discussed this afternoon. I have none. Commissioner Thompson.
I have no additional items.
Commissioner Youngblood.
No additional items.
Commissioner G.
No additional items, sir.
Commissioner Saxton.
No additional items.
Commissioner Coleman.
No additional items. Thank you.
Mr. Baldwin, is there any further business?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I appreciate the vote for the special meeting so we can begin get into the deeper discussion on the rewrite of the zoning ordinance. I think most, if not all of you, are aware the zoning rewrite project was really triggered by City Council in two significant pieces. One was a call to eliminate our form-based code, the D2 form-based code district in what we refer to as Uptown. And then the other, of course, was to rewrite the zoning ordinances. They were obviously beginning to discover a number of issues and concerns they had after the new ordinance was adopted back in 2010. And we've been working pretty hard trying to put a lot of information together to share with the public to guide kind of through the next part of the process as we move into a more public domain for the current status of the project. One of those is our D2 district. This will all be part of the conversation we're going to get into in depth at your special meeting on November 4th. But in the meantime, I'd like to take a few minutes of your time and ask Julie Chop to give you kind of a run through of kind of the status of the work on the D2 district. All this information is available on our webpage, but I think this is helpful to help kind of frame up what's being going on with the D2 district. So if with your permission, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to proceed to ask Julie to give her presentation.
Yes, please proceed.
Hi, Planning Commissioners. This is Julie Chop, planner with the City of Portsmouth. This presentation will give a brief overview of the rezoning of the D2 area and the proposed D2 Innovation Overlay District. Additional information, as Bob mentioned, is included on the Planning Department website, including related studies and maps. Next slide, please. In 2017, City Council directed the elimination and replacement of the D2 form-based code with provisions that are applicable to the Uptown area. The city had determined that the D2 form-based code was an inappropriate tool to encourage the growth and development of the area. A land use study was commissioned in 2017 to provide recommendations on replacing the D2 with traditional zoning districts. Next slide, please. A proposed zoning map was created based on MDC's land use study, community engagement, and public review. 541 parcels in the D2 are proposed for traditional zoning districts, including urban residential, neighborhood mixed use, general mixed use, and light industrial. Staff will be holding a virtual town hall on October 21st at 5:00 p.m. to obtain final input from the property owners in the D2. Please see the Planning Department webpage if you're interested in joining the meeting. Next slide, please. An innovation overlay district is also proposed to be superimposed on the entire D2 area with the new zoning districts. The innovation overlay district is intended to facilitate growth and development in the area. The D2 Innovation Overlay District establishes additional location-specific standards based on subdistricts. The subdistricts include the London Boulevard corridor, the High Street corridor, and the County Street corridor. So you may be wondering what an innovation district is. An innovation district is a place-based urban development strategy that aims to regenerate an underperforming area into a desirable location for innovative and creative companies and workers. An innovation district is a platform for all kinds of activity that stimulate innovation while offering value to entities that drive the economy. Innovation districts have proven to be practical solutions for cities to modernize their economies and pivot from traditional industrial-based production to technology-driven services. More information on innovation districts is available on the Planning Department webpage. Next slide, please. So the next question you may be wondering is, why is the D2 Uptown area a good candidate for an innovation district? The D2 area contains a number of assets for identifying this area as an innovation district, including considerable available land for development and redevelopment, significant publicly owned land primed for private investment, connection to the city's future fiber optic ring, providing opportunities to deploy smart city concepts, linkage to future wind energy investment projects by PMT, considerable public and civic activity with the location of behavioral health services, social services, health department, and the future Hampton Roads Community Health Center headquarters. The D2 area also has locational advantages, including the area is central to Portsmouth. It is adjacent to downtown Portsmouth and Norfolk. There's a direct access to MLK, to I-264 East and West, and Route 164 Western Freeway. The D2 area is in close proximity to PMT and the VIG ports. There are nearby institutions, including the Naval Hospital, Maryview Hospital, Norfolk Naval Shipyard, and the Coast Guard Base. There are also neighboring academic institutions, including IC Norcom High School, Norfolk State University, Tidewater Community College, Old Dominion University, and the ODU Tri-Cities Center. Next slide, please. Next, we will discuss what are the potential benefits of the D2 Innovation Overlay District. The D2 Innovation Overlay District will provide the regulatory framework for the desired redevelopment and land use options. The D2 Innovation Overlay District will give the D2 area a sense of place, an identity, and a vision for inclusive growth. It will facilitate the ability of the city to generate accessible jobs, and it will contribute to economic growth by helping generate revenue. And the district will also help to provide educational and skill training opportunities for Portsmouth residents. Next slide, please. So future steps on this process, the proposed rezoning of the D2 district will be considered in the near future by the Planning Commission and City Council during the consideration and adoption of the newly rewritten zoning ordinance. If the proposed new zoning is approved by City Council, the city's planning and economic development departments will jointly be coordinating the development of a D2 Innovation District area master plan, including a potential new placemaking strategy with extensive community participation and input. This process will hopefully commence during the late spring or summer of 2021, and information regarding these efforts will be available and updated on the website listed on this slide. So with that, I'd be happy to take down any comments or questions you may have regarding the D2 rezoning and the D2 Innovation Overlay District. And please feel free to email me any questions that you think of later, or just feedback that you'd like to provide to the Planning Department. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Chop. Commissioners, are there any questions or comments that you'd like to make right now?
I have a question. This is Commissioner Thompson. Are there any proposed uses that would not be allowed in an innovation overlay district? Like, could you put a trucking facility, you know, someone transfer cargo? You said port related. I'm just wondering, are there going to be restrictions on what can go there?
So the base zoning districts that are proposed on the rezoning map for the D2 area, the uses that are permitted with the use permit will be allowed also. So wherever they're permitted in that underlying zoning is where they'll be permitted. Like there's special standards regarding the overlay district, but they mainly deal with like there's no drive-throughs permitted in a certain area, or there's we haven't really gotten into if there would be specific uses that would be prohibited, but as far as I know, they would be just whatever the use table says for that zoning district.
Thank you.
Commissioners, any additional questions? Mr. Baldwin, do you have anything additional for us?
No, sir, I do not. I appreciate your time and attention this afternoon and all your hard work, and I have nothing else. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Madam Secretary, any additional items for us today?
No, I have nothing else, Mr. Chairman.
And Commissioners, I will see you all on November the 5th at 10 a.m. And this meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.